A year ago, I was chief legal officer at a billion-dollar company. Things were going really well, and during my 5 years there, we managed to grow the company more than 10 times its size. And I had built a sizable legal and compliance department filled with great professionals. And at the same time, I was celebrating 25 years as a lawyer. To summarize, I'd been very lucky professionally, and by the look of it, I was in the right place. But all was not right. While in a great company with great people and a great team, I started losing energy. I'd become frustrated and a bit negative, and also maybe a bit too serious, as you can see in this picture. And I thought it was time to move on and become general counsel or chief legal officer somewhere else. I guess this is how many people do it, moving on to the same job somewhere else, hoping for more inspiration. Leveraging also on experience, maybe getting more money and an even better position. When planning to leave, I looked at other roles in the company, but nothing seemed to fit. The roles put forward didn't seem to be me, or they were too small for my big lawyer ego. I remember saying to my wife that I would have to be over 60 to consider a certain role that was suggested. It just seemed easier and safer to move on to the same position somewhere else. But how well did I know myself? I just recently looked through old behavioral assessments. You know, the red, yellow, green, and blue charts, also referred to as DISC assessments. They rate your behavioral traits and how well they fit a certain role or a certain team. And I was reminded that I always scored very differently than the normal lawyer profile. I was always very, very high on influencing, which is yellow, and average on steadiness and compliance, which is green and blue. And I have to confess, I sometimes hid such results from my managers in the past, as I was a bit embarrassed. It's not really how you should look as a lawyer, right? And there's another twist to this. When my colleagues were asked to assess me in the same assessments, basically guessing where I would end up on this scale, they all rated me as the normal lawyer profile, high on green and blue. I actually had them all fooled. But probably I had also fooled myself. But at the time, continuing with the same lawyer role somewhere else seemed perfectly sane to me. I did not contemplate at all over that I might be in the wrong context altogether. And in my mind, I had actually already moved on to the next lawyer job. But then something happened. The owner of the company, who by the way is 17 years younger than me, suggested a role he thought was really me. It was related to a side project that we had been working on together for quite some time. Still, I couldn't picture myself in this new role. But my manager at the time, thank you, Damien, intervened and urged me to reconsider. And after some long discussions with myself, I finally thought, what the hell? Let's give it a chance. And I started writing a plan for this new role and department. And suddenly, everything changed. While planning the future, I felt this sense of freedom. My mind was now in this new context, and I didn't have to conform to previous versions of me. I didn't have to be Lawyer Martin, and nobody expected me to be much like that in this new role. In a way, I was free to reinvent myself. It was that feeling you have when you start a new school. You can shake off parts of your old self and improve and find some new parts. And be a truer version of yourself. Be more who you want to be. Maybe you remember this feeling. You know, starting high school or even university, when the fear and nervousness subside. You're in this new context, and you realize you are free to be a better version of yourself. You don't have to be as before. You can stop doing what you don't like and start doing what you like. You can discontinue boring relationships and find new ones that inspire you. And you can surround yourself with people that don't have a defined view of you, people that you choose. You don't have to conform to previous definitions of yourself, whether your own or those that others have of you. If you remember this feeling, you probably also remember how much energy there is in this. With this feeling, there's no end to inspiration. You wake up early, eager to go to work or to study. And work is a source of energy and not the other way around. And your energy also rubs off on others. This is a somewhat scripted picture of my current team, but I think you know what I mean. If you remember this feeling, do you remember what happened to it? What happened to it since the last time you felt it? It kind of went away, didn't it? You invest in your career, you do your dog years, you get better at your profession, and you get other things. Money, experience, prestige, promotions, and maybe you start a family, get a mortgage, and time passes. And the distance since your last reinvention starts to grow. And eventually, you can't even remember that feeling anymore, that feeling that was the source of so much energy. Maybe even have to be reminded of it at a TED Talk. This is what happened to me. I was a lawyer and chief legal officer for 25 years. I had not just lost the reinvention feeling, I could not even remember it. But by finding it and following it, I ended up where I am today, true to myself, an improved version, if you like. A people person who likes to communicate and aim to inspire. A happy person. Sometimes now at work I have to hold back on my enthusiasm not to come across as irritatingly happy and inspired. As you can see from the pictures, I now lead the building of a corporate social responsibility unit. And I love every second of it. Even though I don't prepare or cook food for the homeless as in these pictures, most of my work is actually just good old hard work that is not spectacular at all. And now I get to communicate as much as I want, as I'm building up CSR activities in 10 countries. And I get to influence as much as I want, as the company sends me to TED Talks. Finally, I have ended up in my yellow influencing zone, where I think I always should have been. Now, contrary to what you might think, my primary point here today is not for all of you to go out and reinvent yourself. But if you lack passion, I encourage you to look for that feeling from the first day in a new school and see where it takes you. And you can keep the parts that work. For me, that was the company I worked in. And you can change the parts that don't work. For me, that was the lawyer role that never really fitted well. It's not easy, however. And knowing yourself is probably the price at the end of the journey rather than the light at its beginning. For me, self-knowledge and self-realization came after the fact. What now is so obvious to me wasn't obvious at all a year ago. And it certainly helps if you have people around you who can give you that push in the right direction when it's needed. Coming back to myself, I have to admit I did not expect the transformation I went through last year. And more importantly, a lot of it was not my own doing. I did not know how to aspire to be something new, as I didn't know myself well enough. At least I wasn't in contact with myself well enough. Looking into the tunnel, I couldn't see my future self. And I think this is very, very common, at least when you get a bit older. And I think one of the reasons for this is that we don't reinvent ourselves anymore. And this brings me to my main point. I don't think you can reinvent yourself just like that, as you don't know yet who your new, improved me is. But you can look for that feeling and follow it. Thank you.